recent years, India has increasingly
This call is now being recorded. This call
used
is now being transcribed.
these maritime sectors to strengthen diplomatic relations and regional influence. Naval goodwill visits, port calls, bilateral agreements, multilateral forums have become important instrument of India's maritime diplomacy. The objectives of my research are to examine the major features and policy priorities of India's blue economy strategy, to analyze the scope and significance of India's maritime diplomacy in the Indo-Pacific, to explore the relationship between blue economy policy and maritime statecraft in India's regional strategy, to assess how sustainable development and strategic interests are linked in India's maritime outlook. And the last one is to identify the main opportunities and challenges in using blue economy as a diplomatic instrument. In other words, the paper does not just treat the blue economy only as a domestic development agenda. It treats it as a strategic and diplomatic tool that supports India's broader foreign policy and security objectives in the Indo-Pacific. For the third slide is for my research questions and the methodology. The study addresses the following research questions, which form the core analytical framework of the paper. The first one is, what are the major elements of India's blue economy strategy? These questions help me identify the key policy components, institutional mechanisms, and priority sectors that constitute India's blue economy approach. The second one is, how does India's maritime diplomacy support and extend the goals of its blue economy strategy in the Indo-Pacific? Here, I focus on how diplomatic tools such as bilateral dialogues, joint statements, and regional forums are used to advance blue economy objectives. The third is, how do India's maritime initiatives connect development, sustainability, and security and regional cooperation? These questions allows me to examine the multidimensional nature of India's maritime engagements, linking economic development with environmental sustainability and strategic consideration. The fourth one is, to what extent can India's blue economy strategy be understood as a tool of maritime diplomacy or maritime statecraft? In addressing this question, I also drawn Alfred Thayer Mahan's sea power theory as a theoretical lens, not as the main focus of the paper, but to interpret how India leverages maritime capabilities, infrastructure, and partnerships to enhance its strategic position in the Indo-Pacific. Now, the methodologies. As described methodology section of my paper, the approach is qualitative and document based. I rely primarily on official policy documents, annual reports, bilateral briefs, joint statements, and ministry publications. The institution examined include the Ministry of External Affairs, the Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways, and the Ministry of Earth Sciences. For secondary sources, I included the book for the Mahan's sea power theory. The period examined is mainly from 2021 to 2025 with emphasis on contemporary Indo-Pacific maritime engagement. This time frame actually allows me to capture the recent developments in India's blue economy diplomacy, including the new partnerships, roadmaps, and the naval engagements that have emerged in the post-pandemic period. Now the major findings. I have, for major findings, I have included in my slide both my tables from the subheadings that I've included in my paper. The first table is India's Indo-Pacific goodwill visits and bilateral naval engagements, which is under the subheading India's maritime diplomacy in the Indo-Pacific. This table shows systematic and repeated naval port calls and operational deployments across the region. In the paper, I use this table to demonstrate that India's maritime diplomacy is sustained and strategic, not just symbolic. These engagements reflect a deliberate pattern of using naval presence and port diplomacy to build relationships and signal India's role as a net security provider in the Indo-Pacific. For example, repeated port calls and joint exercises with Southeast Asian and Indian Ocean littoral states show that India is not just making occasional goodwill visits, but is maintaining a consistent maritime footprint. This supports my argument that naval diplomacy is an integral part of India's broader Indo-Pacific strategy. Now, for the table two, blue economy as an instrument of India's maritime diplomacy is under the subheading blue economy as an instrument, a tool of maritime diplomacy. This table shows high-level visits followed by blue economy dialogues, roadmaps, and joint statements. In the paper, I argued that these initiatives link ocean governance, maritime infrastructure, and coastal connectivity to diplomatic goals. They show that India is using the blue economy not only for domestic development, but also as a tool to deepen strategic partnerships and enhance its diplomatic footprint in the Indo-Pacific. For instance, the India-France roadmap on the blue economy and the ocean governance, ASEAN-India maritime cooperation initiatives, and the bilateral engagements with Indonesia and Pacific Island states all illustrate how blue economy cooperation is embedded within broader strategic dialogues. Overall, I've included the overall findings as well. Overall, the study finds that India's blue economy is both developmental and diplomatic strategy. It supports strategic autonomy and India's Indo-Pacific vision, and it reflects the continuing relevance of sea power thinking in contemporary maritime strategy, as I discussed in the theoretical section of the paper. In short, the two tables together show that India's maritime engagements are not isolated events, but part of a coherent strategy that links economic, diplomatic, and security objectives in the Indo-Pacific. Now for the recommendation and way forward. Based on these findings, the paper offers several recommendations and way forward. First, there is a need to improve coordination among relevant ministries. The second, India should link maritime initiatives with foreign policy goals. The third is India should use port visits and bilateral visits more strategically. The fourth is India should strengthen blue economy cooperation with ASEAN, France, Indonesia, and Pacific states. Finally, for the futures, research can examine security dynamics, climate changes, challenges, and strategic autonomy. This includes studying how India's blue economy diplomacy responds to changing regional security conditions, climate-related risk, and competition for the influence in the Indo-Pacific, and how these factors shape India's strategic autonomy. This approach can strengthen India's strategic autonomy and support the realization of its broader Indo-Pacific vision. Now for the references, I majorly took the reference from Ministry of External Affairs, Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways, and Ministry of Earth Sciences. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Good, because you kept the time. Yeah, all right. Partha sir, comments?
Yes. Srishti,
Yes, sir.
let me start by saying a very well done paper and a good presentation, right?
Thank you, sir.
But like everything that we do, there is some scope for improvement. And
Yes.
whatever I'm suggesting is just one small point for improvement. Your slide regarding your the tables that you put, table 1 and table 2.
Yes, sir.
Of course, in the end, you did try to link up both the tables, and whatever findings you had got, you did have that thing. But it would have done better. It would have been better if they would have been on separate slides. Okay, a very minor point. I would like to I would tend to ignore this, but since you have done that, and it would have been better if you had separated that slide.
Okay, sir.
In your way forward recommendations, you mentioned 2 points. One was improve coordination between the relevant ministries.
Yes, sir.
What do you mean by that? Do you imply that there is less of coordination between the relevant ministries right now? And if you are asking for better coordination, in what way? Would you like to explain on that?
Yes, sir. Sure, sir. Sir, actually, my point was better coordination between my major, which I've included in my bibliography, in major ministries like Ministry of External Affairs, the Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways, and Ministry of Earth Science. This is for this paper only, which will ensure that maritime initiatives are aligned with India's foreign policy and security priorities.
Okay. But that's what my second portion of the question was. Does it imply that there is some lack of coordination presently?
So, with my findings, a little bit, because when I was making my table, I thought a little bit of.
Yeah. So my question was what kind of better coordination? If it does, if it deserves more research, then leave it. Not an issue. We can always overlook that. Just wanted to know whether you are aware of that.
So actually, the coordination should be based on research only, is what I find. Other than that, whatever happening with the government, whatever articles that I have got, they were very relevant as.
Okay, just for information, I would like to interject and tell you there is a lot of coordination presently going on. Only thing that I can, see what is happening is there are a lot of delays in this coordination, process. So that is the main thing. One of the main major drawbacks of coordination between these ministries is the time delays, okay, that take place whenever communication goes from one department to another ministry. Okay, right. And then, but second was my second question is the third point in your way forward is regarding that port calls should be more strategically inclined. Yeah, what do you mean by that?
So, with that, I meant was these port calls, goodwill visits should be planned not only as the symbolic gestures, but as the tools to promote the concrete cooperation in the maritime infrastructure and the ocean governance and the regional, basically the regional connectivity.
Okay. Yeah, this port calls are basically more of strategic outreach by our government. It is not just the Navy, it's by the government, right? Yeah. So, right. That's all from my side. Thank you. It is a very good presentation. Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Neetika?
Srishti, very good presentation. I'm really impressed. Many points you have already covered. But just suggestions. Have you mentioned about India's Indo-Pacific vision?
Vision map.
Vision.
I have actually included Maritime India Vision 2030 in my paper.
Okay. So, have you talked about like Sagar, how India is turning from Sagar to Mahasagar, because recently India has introduced that Mahasagar vision, right? That blue economy comes under that only, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, ma'am.
So have you mentioned about that Mahasagar?
Not Mahasagar, but I've included the Sagar.
No, because in 2025, now India has changed, has evolved its strategy, its vision from Sagar to Mahasagar.
Yes, ma'am.
So, because the concept of blue economy that you are doing under Indo-Pacific region, it comes under now the Mahasagar vision that you were talking about, the sustainability, because now it is talking about sustainability, that port development, and three major pillars. There are 4 to 5, 6 pillars under which India is working, that under that blue economy concept.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
overall paper was really very good. I really enjoyed your presentation. Please, if you can mention that Mahasagar. If you have
Okay.
already mentioned Sagar, you can, like, in 2025, after 10 years of Sagar, now India has adopted Mahasagar policy.
Right, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
Okay, that's all from my side.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Nitika. Srishti, I have a point,
Yes, sir.
but I do not want you to tamper your paper. This you can keep it as a next project, research project for you.
Right, sir. All right.
See, when we are saying that better interministerial coordination is required,
Hmm.
we must understand that India is a federal, structure.
Right, sir.
That means central ministries getting together is not good enough in whatever form.
Hmm.
Okay, that they improve their coordination and cooperation and work together and all is just 1/3 of the story. The second part of the story, which requires full attention, is integrating with the states. We have coastal states from Gujarat to Bengal. We also have other states in between. They are not landlocked states, but they are integral to the economic dimension that is part of blue economy. Okay. You have also mentioned about waterways, Ministry of Waterways.
Yes, sir.
Now, that means practically from Jammu to, Kanyakumari, from Jamnagar to Imphal, everybody gets involved, should be involved. Because coastal communities alone in India account for more than 50 million people. I'm talking about fisher folk and associated. I'm not talking about the population in the coastal states. Okay. So the interministerial coordination between central ministries coupled with proper coordination with the state governments is definitely required if we have to enhance our blueprint for blue economy. Okay. But again, I said it's only the first one was 1/3 of the story. Now the second part of the story is states. The third part is much more important. That is integrating civil society organizations and fisher communities and private enterprises into that network. If we think that our ports are good enough to promote blue economy, we are wrong. Hinterland connectivity, communication, logistics network, industrial production, warehouses, just to mention a few, okay, are all part of the story. Now, all this cannot be done by the government alone. It requires private sector involvement. It requires coastal communities to get involved. It requires NGOs, civil society organizations to get involved. Unless this comprehensive involvement of all these three portions of the story become a reality, our progress towards blue economy will always be in small portions. Somewhere we'll make a good progress, somewhere we'll lag behind, somewhere we'll go forward, somewhere we'll come back. So when we talk about blue economy as a tool, going outside the country using it as a diplomatic tool is the fourth dimension. Unless these three dimensions, central, state, and civil society, become integrated towards each objective, each goal that we need to achieve through the overall national vision for blue economy, then only the fourth one, that is integrating with other countries, will become a reality. Otherwise, it will be only policy statements and joint statements. Okay. But to bring that in just our way forward or conclusion will be incorrect, because in research papers, we should not include anything in recommendation and way forward unless it has been analyzed and discussed in the main paper. Since this particular aspect, obviously, it's not part of your work right now. That's why I'm saying keep it as a second project. Okay.
Right.
Build it from this, go on to the next. Okay. But that is required if we are really aspiring to become. See, we have all talked about Sagarmala and NMV 2030, National Maritime Vision 2030. But if we carefully see the progress that has been made under these broad policy frameworks, appreciable, but not quite. Not yet. Why? That is because of the second element, integrating states. That's because of the third element, integrating the civil community, private partnership, private enterprise. All it is there that we need. It's not sufficient that the government does. We should not expect the government to do everything. It has to be an integrated approach. Now that is a bigger call. It's a bigger challenge. Okay. It requires not just vision. It requires solid frameworks to overcome red tapes and bureaucracy and all those kind of things, and the vagaries of elections, and the vagaries of political objectives in states when governments change. It has to go beyond all this. It has to be consistent and continuous. Okay. Then 2030, 2035, maybe 40, we will be able to achieve. So this is what the point that you must keep in mind, but don't tamper your paper with this. Okay. Don't include it in the way forward. In response to what Partha sir has asked, when you are rewriting the recommendation and way forward in point form, you may touch about it as future requirement for research. All right?
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So otherwise, no other points. Youngsters, anybody wants to ask Srishti anything? No? All right. Good. Yeah. Okay.